Well, I get to host today, and I am delighted to introduce Jenna to you as taking the lead on our giving season session. And I want to welcome you all. I'm Kara. I'm fundraising coach here at Donorbox. One of the highlights of my job is writing and sharing educational content with all of you. And I have truly enjoyed engaging with so many of you over the last several weeks that we've been doing this. And I'm joined by Jenna today. She is our nonprofit advocate here at Donorbox, and we are talking about donor acquisition this week. I know that's a hot topic for many of our organizations. And so, Jenna, I'm going to turn this over to you now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And again, hello, everyone. One of the top questions we get asked a lot here at Donorbox is how can we bring in new donors to our organization? And that's no surprise, right? This is what everybody wants. And as you're gearing up for giving season, this is especially important. Donor acquisition is critical to the success of any nonprofit organization. And in some cases, it can be the difference between a successful year and a not so successful year for an organization. And giving season is a good time to start looking at donor acquisition. Well, if you haven't already, the concept is pretty simple here. It's important to acquire new donors now who will give during the most generous season of the year and continue to do so in future fundraising seasons as well. So today I'm going to share with you 5 easy tips for donor acquisition that will appeal to both nonprofit startups, perhaps with no or very few donors in their donor database, and also established organizations with an existing supporter base. So it's often hard to find a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to these giving season sessions and our topics. I did my very best to find something that everybody can apply to what they're doing in their donor acquisition. So I'm going to go ahead and launch one of our classic polls to get started. And if you could please indulge me, what is your greatest challenge when it comes to acquiring new donors? Maybe you're a startup. I know that some of you are, and maybe you just don't know where to begin. You're doing a million things already. You don't have the time or the resources. You're not sure how to get people excited about your cause, or you just don't know how to reach your target audience, or maybe it's something else. And if it is, please let us know in the chat. And as suspected, it's across the board already, Kara. I think we kind of expected that for sure. Jennings says, hard to break through the noise. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a challenge for a lot of people. All right. Well, yeah, it's really across the board. I think a lot of people, the majority though, say, I don't know how to reach my target audience. So thank you so much for sharing that. So we'll plug right along. Now, I'm sure many of you already know what donor acquisition is, but we like to define the things that we're talking about during these sessions. So what exactly is donor acquisition? Simply put, it's a process of finding and attracting new donors, right? The goal is to turn people who are interested in your cause into people who are willing to give money to support that cause. And it's important to note, though, that donor acquisition is different from fundraising. Fundraising is involving asking people for money right off the bat, right, on an ongoing basis for a special campaign, while donor acquisition kind of focuses on getting those new people involved with your cause for the first time. So there are definitely challenges associated with donor acquisition. If you're a nonprofit startup, you may not know where to start, or you don't know how to break through the noise of all these really established organizations doing this well already. Or who your target audience even is. And conversely, you may be a well-established organization with a really nice looking donor base, but you need to reach out to new audiences to keep up with that growing demand for services. So you know who your greatest donors are now, but how do you diversify your donor base? So either way, we've got a few tips for you, and we're gonna go ahead and dive right into them. So tip 1 is relevant to any nonprofit during the donor acquisition process. When you're looking for new donors, it's tempting to just start sending out emails or cold calling people. But before you do that, you need to do some research, right? If you're a new organization with no donors yet, ask yourself, who is your ideal donor? Why is that your ideal donor? What are their interests, their values? Where do they live? Are they geographically located toward, like, near you? How much money do they make? All these questions you have to answer before you can even think about where and how to approach them, right? And you can try intelligent targeting with your set of parameters, your specific demographics through donor searches, marketing lists, or a similar service. And here you'll be buying information for known donors who have given money to causes similar to yours. And we actually have a great blog on that I'm going to go ahead and launch it on prospect research tools to kind of help you figure out who that donor, what that donor could look like. So check out that. It's a really great blog. Go ahead and favorite it in your bookmarks bar. And if you're an established nonprofit with an existing donor base, make sure you know who your current donors are, right? That's kind of a no-brainer. You want to pull that data from your CRM or donor database. Is there a certain demographic that donates more often or the highest amount? And then talk to your current donors, right? We talk about this all the time. You got to know your donors. You got to build that relationship. So talk to them and ask them what they love about your organization and what drives them to support your mission. Collect that information from them. And this is important because it helps you figure out where else you can look for donors who match those same characteristics. And plus, once you have this information on hand, it will help you understand what kinds of messaging will resonate with them or messaging that won't resonate with them. And you can also use Google Analytics, and let me know in the chat if you're using Google Analytics now, to see who's visiting your website and where those visitors are coming from. So this will give you insight into what kind of messaging is resonating with potential donors and making them click, right? As well as where they're coming from, which means you'll know which platforms are most effective for reaching them. That might be email. It might be from a certain social media platform. Wherever you are putting your call to action out there, you can see where those people are coming from. And that's a good place to look at. All right. So tip number 2, once you have done your research, you need to understand who your ideal donors are, right? And you need to meet them where they are. What does this mean exactly? It's pretty simple. Once you find out what social media your prospects use, where they get their news, and what other organizations they support. And again, Google Analytics and those marketing agencies can help you find this information. Then you need to take part in those same activities to build awareness of your nonprofit. So post on the social media platforms your prospects use the most, or run paid targeted ads on those platforms. Get a spot in your local newspaper, attend events that will expose your organization to potential supporters. So you want to be where they are. And we say that across the board, just in general. All right, we're speeding along. Tip number 3, don't let a lack of donor connections keep you from reaching your goal. If you're looking for new donors, why not turn to the people who have already shown support for your cause? So tip number 3, leveraging your board and volunteers and other supporters too, is one of the best ways to bring in new prospective donors. Your board and volunteers are part of a network of people who already care about your cause deeply enough that they're committing their precious time to it, right? And hopefully some dollars too, especially from your board. And volunteers and board members are they're your ambassadors. Think of them as your ambassadors to the entire world. So they can help you reach people outside of your immediate network, right? It's kind of like that web, casting a wider net. So invite them to use their own networks to spread the word about your organization and encourage others to give to your organization through peer-to-peer fundraising. And if you don't have a board or a volunteer yet, this is where your friends and family come in, right? So ask them to launch a fundraiser on your behalf through peer-to-peer fundraising. And it's important to note, though, when you ask board members or volunteers to get involved with peer-to-peer fundraising, you need to give them the tools in order for them to be effective the tools for success. So this might mean providing them with information about the types of campaigns that works best for your organization, along with sample messaging and materials for them to use when reaching out to potential donors. And I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but we have created a helpful Donorbox Academy course on peer-to-peer fundraising. It is completely free, and it includes everything you need to know about peer-to-peer fundraising and how to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the link now. And I would say that I should have made this tip number 1 because it's my favorite tip. Once you have your peer-to-peer set up, you can really launch it pretty easily, and it's incredibly effective. And especially if you are struggling with that time and capacity, this really helps alleviate that. And if you don't get new donors, you're at least getting your word out there or getting new volunteers. So it kind of is all the best of all worlds. All right. Tip number 4, show face in your community. So when you are trying to get new donors, you have to be visible. You have to be seen by people who might be interested in donating to your cause, supporting your cause, which means getting out there and interacting with others in your community. And as someone who runs a nonprofit, it's your job to engage with your community. And this means setting up booths at community events, attending town hall meetings, volunteering at places where your target audience volunteers, holding your own events, and really getting to know your neighbors. And if you are not a person who likes to get out there or you don't have the time, that's okay, don't worry. Just be sure that there are people at your organization who can do this. Again, your board and your volunteers can really, really help here. So when people see your name and they know your name, they're more likely to trust you and they'll be more willing to donate to your cause. We all know that. So with this, show up at these events, show face, and be sure you have a way to collect email addresses and phone numbers so that you can reach out to these people later. It's nice to have a handshake and exchange some lovely words, but if you don't know how to contact these people or loop them into that engagement cycle, then it's someone lost, right? So have some sort of takeaway ready, like a brochure, a one sheet, a bookmark, a piece of swag. Everybody loves swag, right? That people can remember you by. And then tip 5. Now, tip 5 is kind of for right now for established nonprofits or nonprofits with a donor base already. But this is a great tip for nonprofit startups for the future. So put this in your icebox folder and make sure that when you are ready to ramp up your donor acquisition, that you think about this. Reacquire your lapsed donors. So we call these SIBUNTs, or some year, but not unfortunately this. So these are people who once gave to your organization but stopped donating for whatever reason. These people might have moved away, had some sort of life change, forgot about your organization. Maybe they weren't being engaged enough, right? But here's the thing. These people loved your organization before, and they may still love it. They just need a little reminder, right? So they need a reminder of the impact that they can have with their generosity, the impact that they've had before. And if you can re-engage them, they could be your next donor who gives every month or 2. You never know. If you don't ask, the answer is no. I always say that. So by using your CRM or your donor database, your spreadsheet, whatever you're in, you can easily identify those lapsed donors by searching for donors who haven't made a gift within a certain amount of time, maybe 24 months, 13 months, whatever makes sense for you. And once you've identified them, make sure to put them back in your engagement cycle. So send a personalized letter reminding them of their past support and how much they mean to your organization. Offer them to sign up for an automatic monthly donation program or a membership so they never have to think about giving again, but they know that it's taken care of. And then ask them if there's anything specific that could make them feel more connected to your cause, like volunteering or attending an event. You can survey them. You can send out that donor survey, ask them for ways that they can improve the donor experience, and offer incentives like being an active donor gives you special access to events or special content that others don't get. And I have seen many organizations have a lot of success with this method. It takes a little time, a little care, but having those people in your donor database already, you've already got your foot in the door, right? They've already loved it. So with all of those tips, I have a final important reminder for you. As you're building your nonprofit's donor acquisition strategy, remember that retention is just as important, if not more important, as acquisition. It's so easy to get swept up in the excitement of building up your donor base, but don't forget the relationships you build with your donors are more important than the number of donors that you have. And creating relationships takes time and it takes care. So along with your donor acquisition plan, be sure you have a stewardship plan ready so that you can keep those supporters happy and engaged. And that's how you get that long-term support. So speedy session for you all. Your practical action for this week, as we promised, is to ask your board members to introduce 3 people each week, or even just one, to who they think would benefit from learning about your organization or becoming involved with your organization. So this can be anyone from a friend, a family member, someone from their place of worship or their child's school or a work colleague, their hairstylist, whatever. Leave that up to them. But you never know where those introductions may lead, and your board is a really integral part of this. 3 might be a big number, but this should be something that they're looking at every month, I think, maybe even more often. But that is your ask for the week. Draft your email, or during your board meeting, your next board meeting, task them with this, and be sure to follow up on it. Now we open the floor to you. Any questions you may have about donor acquisition, about appeal writing, about the course, whatever that may be, we are yours for the next 10 minutes or so. So over to you. I know we may have one question. Oh, I love this question from Tina. I'm going to see if I can't put it on the screen. Any suggestions on how to fire up your board? I love that question. I guess Kara and I are both like, yes, your board needs to do all the things. So I'm like waiting for her to jump into. We're both very excited about this.
Easier said than done.
Yes.
Easier said than done, Tina. Tips there, Jenna. And I have a couple on my mind, and I encourage, as we chat too, I encourage others, if you have something that's worked well for your organization, please put that in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. You should have a board agreement, right? Does your board have an agreement when you're bringing people on? Are you setting those expectations for them right off the bat? So it's great to be a philanthropist and support an organization, but you've got to have duties behind that. So when you have an ask like, hey, can you bring me 5 new contacts, someone who will sign up for our email list, someone who will be a monthly donor? They're not surprised. You're spelling that out right off the bat. And you can honor your board too, right? They're volunteers, just like you would, honor your volunteers in a newsletter, giving them a shout out, or on social media. I know it sounds kind of hokey, but that appreciation goes a long way. That fires people up, or at least my love language is words of affirmation, and you can ask them that too, so that you can honor them in a way that speaks to their soul. Maybe people like acts of service, or they like those gifts, a Starbucks gift card. Get to know your board too and see what works for them, but set those expectations early so they're not surprised when you haven't asked for them, because that's their job.
Well, Tina threw a qualifying comment in the chat that they've had the same board members for 11 years. Wow. And Tina, is that kind of from the beginning of your organization? Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's what I wondered. So I'm on a board that's in a similar situation, and we're actually in our next fiscal year, we are addressing board terms just because we need new energy. When we all started, we had this kind of bottomless pit of energy and excitement and enthusiasm for the organization. That kind of, it's been 6 or 7 years now, and it kind of wavers over time. And so when you introduce new board members in, they bring in that new energy too. So I encourage you to maybe visit some board terms just so you're not wearing out those same board members. And maybe encourage, some repeat board terms and things like that. So you can have 3 consecutive 2-year terms or something along those lines. And then you can have some board emeritus roles for those who roll off in an advisory capacity, so that they still feel like they're a part of things. Maybe they show up for an annual strategic planning retreat or something like that. So so I think just some fresh energy would probably energize the board. Also, I think rallying around a project. So if you all get commitment to launch a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, to go ahead and do that. So that might give some enthusiasm to year-end, fundraising or something like that. So, and empowering them with projects and things like that throughout the year too would be helpful. But
it's a good question.
I wish you all the best. Yeah, fingers crossed for sure.
Yep. All right, we've got another one from Kelly. I believe this one will be for you, Kara. Appeal letters, which we touched on in the previous session. Sounds like a good tool for reacquiring donors who haven't engaged in a while. Do you agree? Is this a good strategy?
I think it is. And I think so. I believe we're going to be talking about segments and segmentation and things soon. We do have a podcast on that from last week if you want to learn more, but I would encourage you to put these lapsed donors into their own segment and speak to them that way. Sometimes I think that people don't realize that they haven't given in a while. And so, dear Jenna, when you made your last gift in 2014, so many things happened, and just wanted to bring you, up to speed on some really great things that are going on, and put in a clear case for support. So how they can get engaged, what you're looking specifically for them to do. It is much cheaper to reacquire donors than to acquire donors. They're a little warmer, I guess, is the way to say it. But it's going to take some intentional outreach. And we know, I guess, working backwards. So donors who've made more than one gift in a year are the warmest, going down to donors who made a gift in the previous year. And then donors who have lapsed a little bit, and then new donors. And that's kind of on the cool to warm, or the warm to cool spectrum. But yeah, so it's going to take a little strategy, a little energy, and speaking to them very specifically. But yeah, I think it's a good strategy. And I think an appeal letter is a good way to do that. And then following it up with email, phone calls, anything you can do there. But lapsed donors are a little easier to acquire than new donors.
Yep, absolutely.
And Tina, you said we struggle with this. Are you talking about reacquiring donors? Okay, so it looks like we have another couple other questions in there. Oh, okay.
All right. So from Francesca, would the appeal writing course help with defining your own voice when writing appeals and content?
Yeah, we do talk about being very authentic. We don't go specifically into the voice of the organization, but we do talk about tips that are unique to appeal writing, and then integrating some art forms and some science, data-backed science into your appeal letter writing. So the flow of the letters, telling a story throughout the letter, but then also some tips on where to put the signature and who signs the letter, and to, be sure to include a postscript and those kind of things. So I'd be happy to talk to you more about finding your voice. If you want to email us at academy@donorbox.org, I'd be happy to give some feedback there too. If that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and reach out.
Excellent, thank you. And then from Megan or Megan, sorry if I mispronounced. How would you ask staff for their contacts who might be interested in donating to your organization? I'm hesitant to ask staff members, but maybe there's value in asking. Is there a creative yet not so invasive way to do that? That is a great question, and actually not one that I have gotten before. And I'll jump in with a quick response that everybody's going to go, ugh, of course, that's the most general response. Ask them if they would engage in peer-to-peer fundraising too. So as you can tell, it applies to many people. People, if they have the capacity, if they want to, that's something that they can do very easily. As far as not being, if peer-to-peer is not the route you want to go, of course, your staff have their own jobs in your own department. So adding fundraising on top of that might be a challenge. I don't know, Kara, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, a previous organization I worked for, we did every year, we had a November board meeting, and we printed off a version of our year-end appeal letter and customized it for each staff member and each board member, and asked them to provide us names that we mail merged in. And so they spent time at that board meeting signing it. So maybe if it's an all-in kind of activity, that they might be responsive to that. But yeah, I think that there is value in asking. I don't think it's invasive at all, especially, I mean, obviously if they're your staff, they're rallied around your mission, they're rallied around, making sure that the organization is sustainable. That's why we do what we do. It's why we ask for money, right? We want to keep the doors open, and we want to keep delivering programs. So I think if that's the way, and I think if it's an all-in, hey, we're just going to have a letter writing campaign. Everybody do it. So yeah, and you could do that in-house. It's not that's an easy, mail merge and print, and everybody sign all together. Maybe have lunch or coffee or something, around the table together.
Always snacks make everything better.
snacks for sure. Yeah. Right.
Oh, thank you for that, Kara. And it's Megan pronunciation. Thank you, Megan, for that thoughtful
question.
Thanks,
Megan.
I think that was a great thing to ask. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. And if you have got any questions, please let us know, and we'll see you next week. So thank you for all of your time today.